Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. My name is Eleanor and today is the 29th day of August, which means that it's the 29th day of the Sealy Challenge. Today's book is an unexpected one. It's Twice Alive by Forrest Gander. It came out last year. He, of course, is the poet who won the Pulitzer in 2019 for the book that came out before this. He was married to C.D. Wright, the great poet who passed away in, I think, 2016. He was married to her for, I think, over 30 years. So I decided to have a look through his book to see if it would suit me. And the first thing I find is a mention of lichens. And that kind of sealed the deal. because of this wonderful poet. So Jen Hadfield really introduced me or reintroduced me to lichens, and I've never seen them the same way since. You learn in biology that a lichen is actually two different organisms. I think it's a fungus and an algae. I better check that. Yes, it's a fungus and an algae and a few other things that scientists are still not sure about. And it becomes its own identity. So I thought, fantastic, I'll see what another poet has to say about lichens. And it's doubly interesting because Forrest Gander actually worked with a scientist, a mycologist, whose name is Anne Pringle. And apparently, what has been discovered by biologists is that once the lichen is formed, it is immortal. It reproduces asexually and therefore can theoretically live forever. And so obviously this is fertile ground for poets. You can immediately see where this is going. You have one human and you have another human and they connect and they become, it's almost as if, they're a new entity, they can never separate, etc., etc. And in the author's note at the beginning, Gander does pretty much say exactly that. So by introducing it in that way, it's already very, very much on the nose. So lichens do this, and this is why I'm writing about them, because look at humans, they can do that too. So in the bookstore, I was really excited about that because I found it incredibly moving and frankly romantic and also quite joyful. And there is quite a bit of that in the book, but it is also very on the nose. Then there are also two sequences called Sangam acoustics. And again, this is explained absolutely carefully with great detail. There's afterward, it's titled Sangam Acoustics, Confluence of Time, Space, and the Human Self. So there's a lot of explanations for this book. By the time I started reading it, I felt actually there was too much explanation. In any case, I have not been familiar with Gander's style, so it was brand new and very exciting to me. It felt at the beginning as if he was just throwing every word from the vocabulary of lichens and the vocabulary generally of biology at me. As far as the actual themes of the book, I would say that it is a lot about his view of relationships. It feels generally like heterosexual love / sexual relationships. I felt quite a bit of eroticism. And again, at first I was swept away by it. because it's eroticism that's mixed in with the descriptions of the plants and the landscape, and also things going wrong in the environment. Fires, for example. He lives in California, and his nature writing in this book is based on the landscape surrounding him, and I found that very interesting. But at a certain point, I think it was actually once I had finished the book and then went back for a second closer reading of a few poems, I felt like there's a lot of ego in this book. And an ego in a poetry book, that's nothing new. And also, it's not a bad thing necessarily. But this particular ego, I wasn't quite... Maybe at this point, I've read so many books, poetry books, back to back, that I am hyper aware. I'm hyper aware of this writer who is, an older, white, heterosexual man who's been super privileged. And maybe I come to it with a prejudice against that. Or maybe I've become used to the freshness of younger writers who just don't quite have as much ego in their work. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself properly, so maybe I'll give you an example, and that might be helpful. This one is called Wasteland. It starts like this: "You will forever regret the petty righteous cruelties you acted out on her. The neem tree without blossoms, the twig girdler, the burying beetle, a yellow and black apple borer with its disgusting stench, which decimated the garden while you were distracted." So is he talking about a tree as feminine? Or is the tree supposed to be a symbol of the woman he's with? Already we're in territory that it's just not my thing. And then he continues: "Right when she was leading you out of something, a laceration inside a laceration into which you tucked her back each night until nothing was left between you but a fear of aging and your unwearying self-concern." So this interested me because it seems to me that, the speaker, who I presume is male, and I sort of presumed he's Forrest Gander, but he doesn't have to be, of course. Okay, so we'll say the speaker. He's kind of realizing that he wasn't as good a partner at a certain point in his life as he would have liked. Okay, I'm listening. "That night, the last night before your so-called return, she sent you a note." Okay, so maybe he's remembering when he was away, and then the note is in italics. And I'm not even going to read it because it's a private note that a woman has written a man, and it's about, "This is what I'm going to do to you when you come back because I miss you and your body so much, so get ready." It's very detailed and very intimate and personal. So unless he made this up, I don't know why he's putting this in this poem. It feels a bit like exploitation of some sort, but maybe I'm just being super sensitive. Then it continues: "Look up and the horizon line has gone, red as a transparent artery, while below you an alligator lizard continues to slide down the warm ash of the Long Valley caldera to dig out her nest in toxic fumes." So he's back again to talking really to himself as the man, I presume. And then he brings in the toxic fumes. So he's talking about, something is wrong in nature, climate change, people have done this, etc. And also there's something weird happening in the relationship. "The years of your footsteps have chewed a worn path into lichen spotting, tough around the rim. You've lost your cadence. No one needs to tell you that. Her absence goes through and through you like a wind's through crumbling bedrock. Nothing remains in session but the Congress of Ants." So that was interesting. It's a bit of a turn towards, being in session and Congress and politics, possibly. And then there's an acceptance by the male speaker that, this woman is no longer with him. But it's all about him. and the amount of ego oozing out of this poem, I don't think I can stand it. And I have a prejudice, I have to say. I have a prejudice against certain male poets who are adored by women around them. And maybe I come to this not completely objectively. I have witnessed several moments in poetry readings where women will kind of buzz around the male poet after his reading. And I feel really sick to my stomach seeing it. Yeah. So I'm just looking at my notes. I think also Forrest Gander takes himself very, very seriously. Very seriously. I don't think there's any humor in this at all. And interestingly, I went back to Jen Hadfield, and have a look through my videos if you're interested in her. I highly recommend her. Scottish poet living in Shetland. So she has lichens in both of these, but this one, the book starts with the poem Lichen. Now, there's almost no ego with Jen Hadfield. There's a lot of humor and lightness, but she has an ear. See, Forrest Gander, he just takes all the words he can find and he puts them all together, and they're like just it's very manly. He just, hear my beautiful words. There's so many of them. And Jen Hadfield, she just uses the best words in the best way. And her little lichen poem, to me, says it all. And it's teeny tiny. I'm going to read it. It's called Lichen. Who listens like lichen listens? Assiduous millions of black and gold ears? You hear and remember, but I'm speaking to the lichen. The little ears prunk, scorch and blacken. The little golden mouths gape. Yes, Jen Hadfield, yes! That is a good poem. Now, she also had, she has also in Stone Age, I made a note of it, I might as well use my notes to remind myself. She has a poem called Dolmen. Is it Dolmen? No. She has a poem called Earthfast. Earthfast is Gaelic for bedrock. If nothing else, go to Jen Hadfield for Gaelic. It's beautiful. So this is what she has to say about stone. I mean, Forrest Gander talks a lot about his love for geology. Jen Hadfield doesn't have to say anything in a forward or an afterward. She just writes the poems. Earthfast. I midwife 100 rocks in a day, red rocks glistening like anvils. Each must be delivered in its own way. Uncleaving, root-veined fascias. With shocking noise they broach the light, red-cheeked and muddy, marred and birthmarked, leaving in sucking soil the imprint of their darling faces. I prize the sticking children, back-breaking work, but no poor me. Although I've been a missionary while you raised your one or two, I have this constellation of strong and silent types, my 100 quiet ones that take to talking late and slow. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how you talk about rocks. So it seems to me that now that I have only a few days left of the Silly Challenge, I am being a little bit cheeky. But then, isn't that what I'm here for? Don't forget, the only real property is the property of the mind. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow, the second last day, the penultimate day of the Silly Challenge. Okay, see you tomorrow.